for listening to Uncle Sam's Soccer Podcast, keeping you up to date with the latest in American soccer. And don't forget to subscribe.
Hello everyone, my name is Steven Jodren. Welcome to Uncle Sam's Soccer Podcast. Joining me as always are Monica Fai and Jake Watroba. This week we chat MLS transfers, FC Cincinnati with Charlie Hatch, and we do this year's first edition of the Counterattack with Jake Watroba. Please make sure you follow the show on Twitter, Uncle Sam's Soccer Pod. There you can get the latest news, information, and everything you need to know about the show. And if you are listening through any of those podcast apps, go ahead and hit the subscription button, wherever that is, and give us a 5-star rating, because we are the best soccer podcast out there. Now, let's get to today's show. Well, Jake, you and I survived the polar vortex. How fantastic was that?
Oh, it was great. Although I did take a look at the forecast. It's going to snow 5 out of the next 7 days. So I don't know. I think I might want that 50 below zero wind chill back instead of dealing with snow for the next week.
There you go. And Armand, you are sick once again.
I'm feel like I'm always sick. So here I am, sick again.
Yeah, I played 90 minutes of soccer on Friday, and I guess my body was like, it's a terrible idea, Armand. Don't do that again, because I'm feeling sick again. But the caveat to this is I've watched a lot of A-League recently because I haven't been able to sleep until 2 a.m. So lots of Brisbane, Roar, whatever their name is, and Melbourne City.
That's funny you mentioned that, Armand, because I also took in an obscure league yesterday morning. I watched the Indian Super League.
Oh, FC Pune City?
It's Pune.
Oh, Pune
I
City.
came to find out, disappointingly, it was Pune and not FC Pune City. So, I think it was FC Chennai or something like that versus Pune City. So the Punes came up out on top. So
wait, Pune or Pune?
It's Pune, but we're gonna keep it Pune.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going to keep it Pune.
There you go. Well, listeners, I know a lot of you paid attention to the U.S. men's national team. They took on Costa Rica. They won 2-0 Saturday. Now, here is our 30-second abbreviated chat.
Oh, geez. Okay. Nice performance. Good goals. Nick Lima looks good. Go USA. They have clarity with Greg Berhalter at the helm. I really didn't care that much.
All right, there you go. And the reason why I made Armand do that on the spot is go listen to last week's episode. We do get in-depth with Joseph Lowry about the U.S. men's national team and these friendlies. Now, let's get to MLS transfers because that really took the leading charge this past week in U.S. soccer. You guys surprised with the moves that were made this past week?
Yes. I mean, yeah, I 100% was surprised because there was like some moves out of left field where you're sitting there like, oh, like why is this happening? And there's other moves that happen. You're like, oh, finally this happened. I mean, so many. It was a big selling and a big, I think, I don't know if turning point is the right word, but it was a strong trend for MLS in the transfer window in terms of selling their pieces.
There were some moves that didn't really surprise me. Obviously, Miguel Almiron leaving for Newcastle shouldn't surprise anybody. Sebastian Giovinco leaving for Al Hilal. Did I say that right?
Yeah, Al Hilal. Come on, man, you gotta throw the accent in there.
That didn't really surprise me. However, the almost transfer of Luciano Acosta from DC United, that was kind of out of left field. I know we were all kind of taken aback by that, just because no one had really heard of Acosta being moved or DC looking to move him. And the fact that he was almost went to PSG was just as surprising too.
Yeah, so let's talk about Miguel Almiron's move to Newcastle, obviously shattering the previous MLS transfer fee record. upwards of $26, $27 million, depending on which report you read. Almiron in 2017, guys, 31 matches, 9 goals, and 8 assists. In 2018, with his run with Atlanta United to MLS Cup, 37 matches, 13 goals, and 11 assists. Almiron, $27 million, doubles Alphonso Davies' move of $13 million, which could actually rise to 22 after add-ons. Josie Altidore, $10 million, Jack Harrison, $6 million, and Matt Miazga, $5 million. Isn't it insane that we finally have a player leave MLS for a hefty fee versus, $5 or $6 million when that's just chump change in today's transfer market?
Or like 1 million. We'll sell you for $500K. It's like 1 million. 27 million. I didn't think that Atlanta would get that much because Atlanta had no leverage. You already signed his replacement. You have to be roster compliant. You have no leverage basically in a situation. Newcastle will be like, okay, we can lowball you and you have to accept it because what are you gonna do? But I guess they were like, hey, we could get rid of Barco and send him on loan if we really need to. And Newcastle's like, all right, fine. Like, yeah, I guess we don't have the leverage anymore, so we'll splurge and get Almiron. I'm interested to see how he'll do because Jake insists that he'll be in the championship next year. But I mean, we'll see if they have performances like it did against City midweek. I don't know if we're talking the same thing.
I'm not a Newcastle expert by any means. And matter of fact, I don't even know where they are on the table. Actually, I know there's 5 or 6 points separating. Was it like 13th place from 18th place, or whatever? It sounds like Fulham and Huddersfield are already relegated, basically. But I'm kind of confused as to how he's going to actually perform at Newcastle, given that they're fighting off relegation, and Almiron comes from a club that was basically running circles around teams in MLS, and now he's going to go play for a Newcastle team that is probably going to concede 70%, 60 to 70% of possession every match. And I'm going to be curious to know how he's going to play in a system like that.
That's a great point, Jake. I haven't thought about that. Wonderful point, actually. Kind of leads into Benitez's comments here, talking to Sky Sports about the price tag. Quote, it means that we realized that we needed something in this position. Obviously, the offensive players are more expensive. We've been talking about a number 10 for a while, and it's a position that if we bring in someone, it has to be expensive. Now, clearly, I think he's taking a shot at the cheap ownership of Newcastle here, but they spent the money, and if you read further along, quote, but the main thing for me is to forget about the money. We are happy with Almiron, ? Hopefully, we will be happy. He has a potential, pace, work rate, and ability to help the team and do something that we didn't have before. There's a lot of weight on this on the shoulders of Miguel Almiron. Fair to say, right? The way Benitez is talking here, price tag, being expensive, playing the number 10 role, talking about his pace, work rate, ability, and the fact that, as Jake just alluded to, they're in a relegation battle.
With Almiron, though, I mean, when you watch Atlanta play, he could break within an instant. If they play counterattacking football, the ability he has with his pace and his pace on the ball too. This guy is so quick; he can break on an instant and lead a counterattack with some offensive creativity. And I don't think that's something Newcastle has had. Watching like the 3 games I've watched Newcastle play.
Hey, let me jump in here real quick then. When you talk about he can hit with his pace and everything, he can hit teams in the counterattack. Can Miguel Almiron play defense? I mean, let's be real. Newcastle's probably playing 9-10 men behind the ball at all times. Is he going to be able to chase down players with the ball?
His work rate, Jake.
In the midfield. What's that?
His work rate. Like, I mean, if you remember, Tata Martino's system was really demanding in terms of he wanted to press, and Almiron would, if I remember correctly, this is 2 months after the MLS season ended, so I'm using my memory right here. He would drop back at least into the midfield and at least a little deeper to try to retrieve the ball and go from there. Because Tata Martino's system was really just a pressing system that required everyone to put in maximum effort, no matter what. I mean, I think he can, but I also would expect that Benitez would make some sort of adjustment in terms of how the team plays, especially when you're going to fit in a $27 million signing.
I mean, here's my thing. It's one thing, to chase down an opposing player when you're playing Orlando City, right? That's great. Miguel Almiron can do that. He can be disruptive in the midfield. It's another thing, though, when you're playing against Liverpool and you have to, I don't even know who's in Liverpool's midfield. Keita Nagby, is he the number 10 there? I mean, but you know what I'm saying? Like, it's one thing to chase down an opposing player on Orlando City and then, go and do it against Liverpool too. And that's going to be the big question mark for me as it pertains to Miguel Almiron. Can he make a big enough impact on Newcastle? I'm unsure. I'm unsure on it, to be quite honest.
Newcastle are in 15th, Jake, 2 points clear of the drop, sitting on 24 points. But let's talk about the MLS angle here. Atlanta United president Darren Eales, quote, "I think we can say after this transfer window, if you're a young player and you're a club in MLS trying to attract a player coming to the prime of his career, you're able to point to Miguel Almiron or Alphonso Davies and now say, look, you can come to this league and actually get noticed and moved on to top clubs and top leagues in the world." Guys, do we agree with this comment?
I would say yes. I mean, with all the moves made, I mean, look, you're going to be a special talent no matter what. But with all the moves made, I mean, I bet their FC Dallas quota for his podcast. But I mean, Chris Richards moved without playing a single game for FC Dallas. Like, he didn't have to play a single game, and he moved on to a top team like Bayern Munich. You see Alphonso Davies moving also to Bayern Munich. You see all these young Americans, getting snatched up from academies and stuff like that. I feel like if you do well in MLS, this is a huge, stamp of approval from other leagues saying, hey, we're watching. I think, honestly, I know we're going to get to this a little bit later, the Luciano Acosta move would have been even bigger for this. I mean, it fell apart. It would have been even bigger that, hey, other teams are legitimately watching you week in and week out as maybe as a reinforcement for the team. And that fee is $27 million. I mean, look, that's not a small, fee. That's a big investment for a side like Newcastle to put into their team. So, I mean, I agree with what Eales is saying. It's, hey, look, come to MLS, come show out. And if you show out, you could be gone for a nice side. You could be gone to a team in the top leagues in Europe.
Yes and no. I agree with it to a certain extent. I think this is a good start. I don't think Miguel Almiron or Alphonso Davies leaving for Bayern Munich and Newcastle United respectively signals now that MLS is now all of a sudden this stepping stone to get to Europe. Now, come on, all you Argentinians, come on, all you Colombians, Paraguayans, come on up to MLS. We'll get you over to Europe in a couple of years. I don't think that's what this means yet. I think you can, judging by how the Luciano Acosta transfer played out, I don't really know what happened there. If that was, we've kind of heard conflicting reports, where DC United kind of, there was the difference of $1.5 million there. There was that report. There was the other report where PSG kind of, it sounded like they just walked away. I don't necessarily think that this is now the tip of the iceberg now, where MLS is going to just start becoming this league where young South Americans or just young players in general come to play a year or two and then get on over to Europe. I don't think we're there yet. I think we still need to see moves like this before we can say it. MLS has now become a sellers league and a league that has become a stepping stone for young talent.
I don't know. It's a little too soon to tell. I think it's one player. We need to see a little bit more. It's the first domino to fall down. It's like David Beckham coming as a DP. Now let's see what follows. Will more players come along? Now, this is, I think, an interesting fact. 5 years ago, the average newcomer age in MLS was 27 and a half years old. Now, doesn't include draft picks or development academy players, is 25.24. So, 25 and a quarter years old. So, and this is coming from ESPN.com. It's a fantastic statistic. They're showing that MLS is growing into this youth moment just before they hit their prime, which gives them the opportunity to make the move. Now, if you're an ownership group, Armand or Jake, does this allow owners to realize, maybe we should go this route and try to see if we can invest and get a better return on it once they grow 1 or 2 years here in the league, and then you sell them off for twice the price that we paid for originally?
No, I don't think so, because you have to look into how much they actually do get. I don't know numbers off the top of my head, but I do know that MLS takes you get 3/4 of the fee, while MLS takes the other 25, and then only a specific amount goes towards general allocation money, while the rest of the money, goes towards other, just development of the facilities and stuff like that. I think the incentive is there for one to continue to invest in academies and not necessarily going after big name players or developing players from Argentina. I mean, we do see that, that Atlanta especially has gone for Pity Martinez with these sizable fees. But if you're the common MLS owner that doesn't have the checkbook of Arthur Blank, you'd rather invest in your academy because you get 100% of those fees compared to getting 75%. And that 25% could be used, towards, again, building a second team or a reserve team. I think they said DeAndre Yedlin's fee for the Sounders to help make Sounders 2. This is just off the top of my head. So you have all these things. I would much rather invest in my academy if I am a common MLS owner than go after a player like a Miguel Almiron. Rather would see academy players come up and, be an Alphonso Davies. You get to keep all that fee compared to only getting a certain percentage of it.
I agree with Armand. I think it's a little bit of risky business to buy players from South America and think that you can, in a year or two, flip them for a profit. I think teams are better off investing in their academies and growing their young American talent and then flipping them over to, Germany or England or wherever. I think that while Miguel Almiron was a nice story and they were able to flip him for a profit, I mean, let's be real here. I mean, they could have bought. I mean, it could have been just as bad for Atlanta though too. They could have invested in Miguel Almiron. He didn't pan out, and then all of a sudden you're sunk. You have a sunk cost there, and it's a risky bit of business if you think you can buy somebody and then develop them and sell them off for even more than you paid for. You're better off just developing your academy products and flipping them.
But let's talk about some other moves quickly. After scoring 68 goals in 144 appearances, Sebastian Giovinco is headed to the Middle East to a club I can't pronounce, Al Hilal of Saudi Arabia for $2.5-3 million. Although Giovinco does slam TFC in an Instagram post where he talked about wanting to renew his contract. He's tried. Guys, this is kind of a strange situation.
It is, and my thoughts on it. I felt like this was coming. Your core of Giovinco, Altidore, and Bradley is aging really quick. Do you really want to sign Giovinco to a monster deal like he's probably expecting and demanding? And I think Ali Curtis has also came out and saying, hey, we offered him a deal to make him one of the highest paid in MLS. Well, that's cool and all, but I know from what we've heard, these Middle Eastern clubs in the UAE, Saudi, and Qatar, they do offer lots of, I guess, post playing incentives as well. Such as security and lots of money after you play as well. Look, I think Giovinco Sands kind of spin it. I mean, it's kind of like the whole Porzingis thing. In the NBA, you kind of want to spin it and make sure it's in your favor. That you don't look like the bad guy, the other guys look like the bad guy. Because I feel like a lot of people are ripping TFC now for what they're doing. But I mean, I think the writing was on the wall, and you know what? He's a great player and was a fantastic one. But I think it was time to move on. To be honest with you.
Yeah, I agree. He's getting old. He can't be forking over tons of money to an aging star. And like you said, Josie Altidore, Michael Bradley, that core feels like it's getting older for TFC, and it kind of showed last year as they didn't make the playoffs. And as our Steven Jodaran has alluded to me through text messages, they will not make the playoffs this year. Don't worry, everybody. I wrote that down so we can come back to that come October, November. But no, this just it was time. It was time for him to leave the club. It was time for him to get out of MLS. He great player in the league, probably the best player to ever play in MLS. So unfortunate that there's this little clash of he said, she said thing going on here with Giovinco and the club. But I mean, TFC, they had to get rid of him. It was time.
Yeah, I agree, Jake. I mean,
Do you guys know how old Sebastian Giovinco really is?
What is this like?
32, yeah.
32, unless he was born in like the Dominican Republic, where they don't have like birth certificates and stuff like that.
Well, he's 32 years old. Like,
so we do know.
So you do know, but how are you guys calling him old at 32? 32 is not particularly all that old.
Hey man, MLS has become one of the best leagues in the world. 32 is getting
the average
old.
age is 25, 25 and 24. I don't know.
No, that's not the average age, Armand. That is totally you misreading that statistic.
We're becoming, the league's becoming a sellers league now. This isn't a retirement league,
All right, we'll talk about selling league. What happened to Acosta, Armand, with DC United?
Yeah, so this is from The Athletic, from Pablo Maurer. Basically, I'm paraphrasing what happened. We all were, on Twitter. I think it was, I want to say, like a Thursday or Wednesday night, when all of a sudden this report came out that PSG was targeting Luciano Acosta, to where I think the universal answer I got when I sent the tweet out to some buddies was, you can fill in the blank. Just a really weird situation where they're connected. This is according to the article, by an intermediary of the club, who said that PSG would go after Acosta for the fee that DC wanted. DC wanted 13 to 50 million. PSG said 9 to about 11 million. There's a little bit of a gap between the two. Luciano Acosta and his agent and the lawyer went to Paris for a physical, and they were there. And then the deal fell apart due to that distance. And according to the article, it says, with Miguel Almiron's deal, that DC United wanted more instead of the 9 million that was offered. And it was a really surprising situation. I'm honestly really shocked by, first off, DC not being able to agree to a fee for him, because I think, if I remember correctly, his contract is expiring at the end of the year. So, I mean, if I'm Luciano Acosta, I'm pretty pissed off that you guys can't negotiate a deal with one of the biggest teams in the world. And it's just it's such a bizarre situation that I think this would have been a bigger deal than the Miguel Almiron deal, because you have PSG looking at a player like Luciano Acosta, like, that would really put the league on notice. Like, hey, people are paying attention to your talent.
And according to rumors, Armand, he wasn't even PSG wasn't even the only big club to be looking at him. Wasn't there Manchester City?
I think Man City. I think from an initial report, and a couple other Premier League teams. Yeah.
I mean, it's odd, and the fact that, I mean, we talked about this earlier about, is this, with the Miguel Almiron and Alphonso Davies transfers, is this the point where MLS can say we can send kids to Europe now? For as much as you can point at those two transfers, you can look at this and say, this is how screwed up MLS is. They stopped an Acosta transfer over $1.5 million or whatever the difference was. I mean, it wasn't much for these billionaire owners, obviously. And I think this, for as much as those two were, hey, look at how great MLS is. This is one of those potential transfers that can also. People can point at and say, yeah, but this is also what MLS can do to you as well, and it's kind of a blemish a little bit on the league right now.
Yeah, it is bad luck. I mean, the fact that he was in Paris, DC United holding him up, and I mean, they should have sold on him when the opportunity was high, because his contract's running out and it's unlikely that he resigns. It's like
I mean, I wouldn't resign if I was him.
No, I mean, the likelihood is he's going overseas. The question is where. Maybe they can sell him in the summer window, but the price has suddenly dropped because he's a free agent. And
yeah, they ain't getting $13 million for him.
Nope.
Yeah, there's no way. And I mean, MLS players are undervalued to begin with, so that value is going to skyrocket down. But a final question I actually have for you guys. Maybe it's a little too deep for a final question, because I know we have a couple minutes left. But how do you feel? We talk about MLS as a selling league. Okay, it's great and all. But the one thing I've noticed is fans are a little pissed off. Hey, your best player is going to be transferred in like 1 to 2 years. How do you think that's going to have an impact? Do you think fans need more education? Because they come from different leagues and stuff like that. The NBA, like that stuff. You don't transfer your player to another country.
None. It's not going to have zero effect. Zero.
I'm fine with it. Go if Minnesota United's bringing in players that they can sell in 2 years. That means Minnesota United's doing something right. So go ahead, flip your players. I don't care.
Armand, the soccer education in America is only going to grow. These people are going to know what is happening when they show up at football stadiums or soccer stadiums, and it is a good step in the right direction. I mean, if you're in a small country in Europe and you're not in England or one of the big leagues, you hope your players move on, particularly if they're American. I think if they're American and they make that move, there's even more of an incentive. But we will see if more Americans can make the leap from MLS to, say, the Bundesliga or the Premiership, just like we saw with Tyler Adams of New York Red Bulls. Anyway, listeners, follow us on Twitter, Uncle Sam Soccer Pod, at Armand Kafai, at Jake Watroba, at Steven Jodderin. Come back tomorrow. We talk FC Cincinnati with Charlie Hatch.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jake Watroba, and welcome to Uncle Sam's Soccer Podcast. Joining me today is Steven Jodderin and Armand Kafai. On this episode, we chat FC Cincinnati with Charlie Hatch. Please make sure you follow the show on Twitter at Uncle Sam Soccer Pod. Make sure you subscribe to the show anywhere you get your podcasts, and also make sure to leave us a review. Now, let's get to today's episode.
Alrighty, listeners, let's get straight to it. Joining us on the line is FC Cincinnati club reporter. You can follow him on the Twitter machine at @CharlieHatch_. Charlie, how's it going? Did you get hit by the polar vortex, or were you traveling with the team?
No, I'm actually with the team, but I got a message from my parents saying it was -7, and then it snowed more. So it looks a lot nicer in Florida.
Yeah. Enjoying the preseason, huh? Jealous.
That is correct. I'm at least trying to, but.
So just talk to us about the excitement for the upcoming season. Finally here with MLS after the last several years in USL. It's kind of like winning the league. Now you're getting quote unquote promoted. What's the excitement and what's the conversation like within the club?
Yeah, I mean, it's never ending. I think the big mantra basically around the club is there is no off season. If you have a situation where you make it into MLS, you're told roughly around Memorial Day last year, and at that point you got to start moving forward, planning things from your branding in MLS to jerseys to who are the staff you're going to bring in, the scouts. And what's ended up happening is while the USL season was going on, there's still player recruitment for MLS. Obviously, the expansion draft and then the draft FC Cincinnati was pretty active in. So there hasn't really been any sort of downtime. And it doesn't help that there was one portion where I think in 2 weeks, 10 players were added, including draft picks. So less than a month away now from the first game. It's a lot of excitement. There's still a lot of stuff it seems like needs to happen. But there's still time to really take it in before the first home opener on St. Patrick's Day.
Charlie, can you give us an idea of what the Cincinnati sports landscape is like? Is FC Cincinnati something that can rival the Reds, the Bengals, and the Bearcats?
Yeah, I don't know how it's viewed from the outside. Internally, or at least in the city, it's a strange situation in that you've always had these two historical teams, the first team in Major League Baseball and the Reds, and then obviously the Bengals. And here comes FC Cincinnati. But if you walk around downtown or you go anywhere, you'll see FC Cincinnati stuff, whether it's the old logo, new logo. So it's definitely a place where the team can come in and fit in. They've been able to find a way to get people, whether it's youth, people interested in soccer. The city's getting younger inside of its core. So they are able to fit in. And again, you have a unique perspective where Xavier and UC both have big basketball teams. But FC Cincinnati fits in. There's no situation where it's, oh, how are they going to manage? Is this a three-city or a three-sport town like Cleveland or something like that? Everyone's getting in. Everyone has its own fan base. And like I said, you'll see situations where I think FC Cincinnati had more, I think it was higher attendance on average last year than the Reds did. Obviously, the Reds played more games, but it gives you an idea that this isn't a situation where it's hot and exciting for a couple of years and fades away.
Well, the question before, you talked about this transition period where it's been ongoing and there was really no pause. What has been the biggest challenge to overcome transitioning from USL to MLS?
I guess it would just depend on whoever, whatever part of the organization it is. The biggest thing that seemed different is, or at least a lot of people on the outside have said, well, did you bring too many people from USL, things like that? Because there were 11 players, including Fatai Alashe and Fernando Adi, who are already in MLS. But you look at the team, FC Cincinnati, when it was in USL, rather than going with a lot of young players and trying to build that way, kind of like what New York Red Bulls too would do, understandably, the team played for a championship. And so you look at the roster, the 2018 roster that won USL regular season title, and it was stacked with people who were experienced and played professionally either in MLS and other leagues. And so those people are coming up as if it was just kind of like the English Championship into the EPL, a natural transition. That's something that kind of flowed seamlessly, but at this point it's just trying to bring in the right pieces, getting everyone situated together, and then trying to finalize the roster ahead of the first season.
Charlie, can you talk about the club's expectations heading into this season? Now, obviously, it's the inaugural season for the club. Coming up from USL, there was the short turnaround from USL to MLS. But what are the club's expectations heading into the season? Is it kind of playoffs or bust, or is it hopefully we just kind of contend for a playoff spot and let the chips fall where they may?
But there has been Alan Koch, the head coach, hasn't come out and said this is what we're going to do and it's this or nothing. He has said, obviously competing for a championship. In general, FC Cincinnati has been a team that has actively pursued championships, whether it's trying to get the Open Cup in 2017, USL, in those regards. So I think coming in with the winning mentality, the fan base is used to winning from the first three seasons. So looking at something where you can make the playoffs, it's definitely something that everyone would like to see. Again, I think it'll be interesting. The first couple games of the season, or the first 10 games, are against 9 playoff teams from last year. And so it's basically like seeing, where is this team? How does it stack up against the league? And then what happens from here? It just, because the team's never been in MLS, there's no real way to really gauge the team against other MLS clubs until you have those first regular season kickoffs.
Right. I mean, I think there's a lot of excitement just to see what type of atmosphere, if the club can, take over the city like you see in other Major League Soccer markets. And I think a lot of eyes are pointing to Atlanta. The question is, what type of style, how will FC Cincinnati move forward? And you're obviously with the team here in preseason in Florida. Has there been, anything that stood out to you that you would say, this could be an interesting player or a tactic that we might see going forward throughout the season?
Yeah, I think the team has a couple different angles they can go with. The first game that they played against Montreal's 1-1 draw was a 4-3-3. On Saturday, they beat Colorado Rapids 1-0 using a 3-5-2. They have the depth to do things like that. They have people that can change and rotate. The unique thing about the team is the back line is incredibly solid with people that are proven internationals. And then you look in the midfield and you have someone like Caleb Stanko, who played in Germany, who played a little bit in the Bundesliga, who's 25. He's young. He can come back to America. How will he play? They brought in Alan Cruz, who was playing for the Costa Rican national team yesterday against the U.S. He's another young guy. He's 22 years old. And then obviously bringing people in like Kendall Waston from Vancouver or Elvis Powell from Portland. Greg Garza, who's obviously a U.S. international as well. There's a lot of talent there. There's people who can get forward. this team in general has liked to play out of the back and tries to move forward, attack on the wings when they can, and always have a good spine. And so you've kind of seen that in terms of the roster recruitment and the people they've brought in.
Charlie, where does Frankie Amaya fit into all this? Does he figure to be a regular in the starting 11 when the season starts, or is he going to have to battle it out with some guys to get into that starting 11?
Yeah, there's no been expectation that's been set on him. Here's what you're going to do. Here's the role you're going to play. When I talk to Frankie, he's like, look, I want to make some appearances. I want to show people why I was the number one pick. The club would like to do that too, obviously. There's a decent midfield. It's not necessarily clogged. There's just people trying to figure out their way. Frankie made his first appearance on Saturday against Colorado. He played 10 minutes. So at this point, it's still trying to work him in and seeing where he fits on the roster rather than you're going to play X amount of games or make X amount of appearances from either the bench or starting.
Charlie, what is the one player you, Charlie Hatch, are excited to see this upcoming season?
One player? I don't know if I have a specific one. I think it'd be cool to see which players from the USL team can make it. There's people that you guys might not necessarily know about, like Hassan Ndam has played well in USL with the Red Bulls that they brought in. I think it'll be cool to see Darren Maddox, who was brought in from DC United, who a lot of people were saying, well, why bring this guy in? You have Hadi, or how did they play when they were together? Previously, he's looked really good in preseason training. There's a guy named Leo Bertoni who came from Young Boys in Switzerland who's looked really good in preseason as well. So seeing those kind of guys, people that can come in, play well in the midfield or score goals, like Maddox up front, would definitely be something that's exciting. And I don't know if it's necessarily something that people around MLS expect, but these are either new faces or people who've been in the league that have a new opportunity to show what they can do.
Yeah, Charlie, I would say as a fan of a team, my team being Minnesota United, I can say in the inaugural season, it seemed like the greatest contributions they got in that first season were from players that featured with them in the NASL, and then you had a couple of players who were with USL and Kevin Molino. But I want to ask you about this. You talked about the draft earlier here in the interview, but I wanted to ask you, what were the team's thoughts on acquiring all of Philadelphia Union's draft picks?
Well, you look at that situation, and it's, obviously not all the picks were used. There were picks passed in the third and fourth round, but FC Cincinnati got a deal with LAFC where LAFC said, hey, we'll give you this amount of money that and a first round pick. That happened just before the draft went down. And then there's that later in that day, the trade was announced with Philadelphia. So FC, without trying to justify or explain why teams necessarily did it in this particular way, it was a situation where FC Cincinnati actually made a profit off of the players the deals between LAFC and then Philadelphia. And in addition, picked up more picks that they could use. So, that 13th pick, they brought Logan Gadula and a fullback from Wake Forest. That's somebody that might not necessarily have been there with their 16th pick, which they ended up giving to Red Bulls. But FC Cincinnati is in a different situation from everyone else just because you don't have an academy. You don't have homegrowns you can go to. And so if this is a way that you can jumpstart that and you can start bringing in younger people that might start playing a role or be part of your core down the road, that's why they went with that route. Again, it's completely understandable why everyone's like, well, why would you make that move? But they took the money essentially from one deal and then applied it to another and then got all those picks out of making such a move.
Now, Charlie, last question here. How excited is the club to be facing the Columbus Crew this upcoming season?
Yeah, it'll be fun. They actually play in a couple weeks in Charleston. But they've played before. They played in the Open Cup in 2017. FC Cincinnati won. That was cool in itself, and it's cool seeing. There were about 1,000 or so Columbus Crew fans that came down, and I think during the draft or the expansion process, when everyone was wondering if FC Cincinnati would be getting in, there's also a lot of concern how much does Columbus impact FC Cincinnati? Is that something that's actually a thing? Would they take one over the other? The fact that Columbus Crew is still around, a lot of people in Cincinnati grew up going to Crew games. I had Crew season tickets as a kid. So the fact that they're both being able to play in the same league, that they're able to stick around, that it's a natural rivalry, the hell is real sign in between the two on Interstate 71 has always been there. So it should be exciting. I think it's something to look forward to. The fact that it's in August, there's a little bit of a wait. It's kind of frustrating, but it's something that should last around. There's no doubt that it should sell out both stadiums, and it should be something that the rest of the country, who maybe they see it as flyover country or whatever, will be able to say, look, that's true passionate rivalry between two teams that are fairly close to one another.
Charlie, we'll be looking forward to the I don't know what we're calling it, the Ohio Derby or I don't know. But anyway, thank you so much for your time today. Please tell our listeners where we can find your work and where we can find you on Twitter and anything else you may want to plug away.
Yeah, I will say, so we call it the Hell is Real Derby. That's what the fans called it, and so we're keeping that. Although Columbus Crew haven't actually come out and said anything on their social media, so I don't know what they're going to say. So we'll have to see what goes down. That's what our club has said. But yeah, you can follow me with the club at FC Cincinnati, FCCincinnati.com, or on Twitter at Charlie Hatch with an _.
Wonderful, Charlie. Thank
you guys
for,
so much
for joining us here today. And I guess good luck with the preseason and the season ahead.
Thank you, and you guys as well.
Thank you. Now, there you have it, inside FC Cincinnati. Armand, you disagree with the draft picks, and you also said last year they weren't making the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, look, the picks, the expansion draft, and how the roster was built, to me, it's a little interesting. I do love the pick of Frankie Amaya. I feel like he's almost a homegrown player. You're picking up a guy at 18 to develop. I mean, I think it's a fantastic pick. But I mean, look, maybe with the expanded MLS playoffs, I could be wrong, but there's so many defensive mids on that team. And, relying on USL players, I think our boy Jake knows how that ends up. I mean, you get some good players like Christian Ramirez and Miguel Ibarra, but I mean, outside of that, it's not the greatest way to go.
I can tell you, and I mentioned this in the interview, I can tell you the greatest contributors to Minnesota United's inaugural season were Christian Ramirez, Miguel Ibarra, Brent Kallman, and I get that he played in MLS for a couple of years prior to joining Minnesota United, but Kevin Molino also, who featured in USL with Orlando City, was also a pretty big contributor for the Loons. I don't know why you're so down on them. I think that they've done a very smart thing in saying we're going to defend, and like Charlie alluded to, they want to play out of the back. We're going to sign a bunch of defenders. We're going to sign some defensive midfielders, and we're not going to give up 70 some odd goals like Minnesota United did their first season. We're going to play defense, and we're going to try to grind out some results. And I think they will battle for a playoff spot, and I would not be shocked if they finish 6th or 7th in the East. So
we have the same kind of range, right? Like you have them finishing 6, 7. I have them potentially outside looking at 8 or 9. Yeah,
you in a prior episode said they would finish 8, 9, or 10, and I said no, Armand.
So playoff bubble. Is that what we're predicting?
I don't think a 6 seed a bubble team.
Yeah, because
I guess playoff bubble. I think there are a lot of people that think because this team hasn't spent thousands of millions of cajillions of dollars on Tam, Gam, Zam, whatever.
But they have
Winger X. Yeah, but they haven't done it on a winger X, Y, and Z, and they don't have a attacking midfielder that anyone's heard of, and they're relying on USL players that everyone just assumes, this team's going to be terrible. This team's going to be at the bottom of the table with Orlando City. I don't think so. I think that they're going to be strong out of the back. They're going to have a spine, and they're going to be able to defend and play on the road some because they can defend, and I think that's going to help them in the long run.
I don't know. We'll see. I think this team could sneak up on people. This is anytime you play FC Cincinnati, it's a trap game. These are trap games, and they're going to have a pretty substantial home field advantage that a lot of the league is going to get very jealous of very quickly.
What's the home field advantage? Turf?
No, they're just going to have people in their stadium.
Shots at half the league.
Yeah, put them on blast. Anyway, listeners, follow us on Twitter, UncSamSoccerPod. If you haven't listened to yesterday's episode, go back. We talked MLS transfers. Giovinco, Almiron, and Acosta, those big three.
Silly season.
Yeah, silly season. Come back tomorrow. We do the first installment of the Counterattack with Jake Watroba. And new thing here on Uncle Sam's Soccer Podcast, the Counterattack is going global. Till next time. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Uncle Sam's Soccer Podcast. My name is Steven Jodren. Joining me, as always, Jake Watroba and Armand Kafai. On this episode of Uncle Sam's Soccer Podcast, we do the Counterattack with Jake Watroba. If you haven't already, go back and listen to the previous two episodes. We talked about MLS transfers and FC Cincinnati. Go ahead and hit the subscription button, wherever that may be on any podcast platform you listen to. Give us a 5-star review. Follow us on Twitter, UncSamSoccerPod. Now, let's get to today's episode.
Fast-paced, shifty movement, brilliant skill. It's the Counterattack with Jake Watroba.
What's going on, everybody? It's Counterattack time here on Uncle Sam's Soccer Podcast. We have a plethora of topics, and I mean plethora. I have topics on topics on topics, man. Okay, you guys ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
I'm always ready for the counterattack, Jake. Let's
do
go.
this.
You're always ready, baby. You're always ready. All right, let's dive right in. Let's get going here. First topic up for discussion: Eric Winalda's Las Vegas Lights beat Toronto FC yesterday. Yesterday being Saturday, as we're recording this on a Sunday, 5-1. I believe TFC's backline was their starters from last year. Give me your thoughts quickly on this complete domination of Las Vegas Lights FC over Toronto FC.
Guess what? Toronto's not making the playoffs. And I said that, Friday, yesterday, before this result, before Giovinco moved. They're not making the playoffs.
So, my hot sports take, I think we need to see Las Vegas in MLS. I think they should earn promotion into MLS because, first off, if you all watch the highlights, they release confetti on the field after every goal. The field is covered in confetti by the end of the game. Yeah, I would be embarrassed if I was a TFC. They look terrible in that game. And, yeah, go Lights, go Llamas, go Eric Winalda.
I'm going to make sure, by the way, that we hashtag ProRel for USA in this episode, as Armand has now called for it. I want Ted What's-His-Face to retweet this now, just because Armand Kafai is our ProRel correspondent or connoisseur. All right, moving on here. We're going to go international. Our boy, Neymar.
Our boy. He's not our boy.
You love Neymar. You can't get enough of Neymar, Steven. Neymar's hurt once again. Has been ruled out for 10 weeks. PSG has a big two-legged fixture with the red-hot Red Devils of Manchester United in the round of 16 in the Champions League. Guys, is PSG in trouble?
Yes.
Well, they didn't get Luciano Acosta, and I think that would have been the X factor for them, especially with Neymar being out. So I don't give them a chance. I mean, look, I know they have Mbappe and all these guys, but without Luciano Acosta, they're nothing. So, yeah, there's no way.
Honestly, Manchester United, I think, is 9 wins and a draw in the last 10 or something like that.
It's ridiculous. They've been on fire.
They've been on fire. This is not the team PSG wants to play right now. Is the team that's hot. Now, what? Neymar's out 10 weeks or so. So we'll see.
Out for a year, basically, if you think about it. It's pretty terrible.
All right, let's go back. Let's do a little MLS with a little international here. Former Manchester United midfielder Nani, however you say it, has interest in coming to MLS. However, ESPN's Jeff Carlisle is reporting that according to a league source, sorry. Make sure we clarify that, by the way. MLS has a 50-50 chance of landing the former Man United midfielder. Guys, is Nani coming to MLS? And two, would this be a good signing for the league?
He's in his, lower 30s? I thought he was a lot older than that when I looked up his age. I flipped the coin and said, no, he's not coming. Because since it was 50-50.
I mean, who doesn't want to live in America? So, I mean, wouldn't be surprised if he did. I mean, if he comes at the right price, why not? He's
going to Orlando, too.
A fun winger.
Orlando, that's where I think he'll end up.
I feel terrible for him. Feel terrible.
The Orlando is the place where
careers die. Is that
careers die? It's where they hand out paychecks to dudes that don't deserve paychecks. Yeah, you're right. Orlando City seems like the perfect place for Nani to sign and to feature in MLS. Moving on now to Monaco, where they have sacked manager Thierry Henry and rehired Leandro Jardim. Guys, should MLS be on Thierry Henry's radar?
That should have been his first destination, if I'm honest. Should have come to MLS first to get a little prep. I know he was on the Roberto Martinez squad, World Cup squad into the semis, but how funny is it that Monaco rehired the guy they sacked, now have to, carry Monaco or limp across the finish line and avoid relegation?
He shouldn't have taken the Monaco. I mean, it's his boyhood team, so I don't blame him, but he was just absolutely awful. Monaco's in 18th place right now, sitting on 18 points. They're tied with Emmons in 19th place. So, it's a terrible start for Henry, but I think he can salvage it by getting either an assistant job somewhere or, maybe an MLS team just like, hey, come over, we'll take you and come sign with us.
Armand, real quick. Why is Monaco so bad? Did this team contend for a Champions League trophy a couple years ago?
Yeah, that's when they had Mbappe.
Yeah, I mean, that's what happens when you sell all your best players. You become a selling club, selling league. I mean, look, you're not going to be as good some years, especially when you get rid of your best players. Now they got Fabregas now, so it looks like he'll have an impact on them as well.
And he scored.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. Okay, well, I was always under the assumption that Monaco was just this, like, developmental haven for young talent. So I don't know. To me,
it's like MLS.
Right. I guess being 18th in League One I didn't really expect that from them. But anyway, moving on here. Let's go back to America here. A little Germany. Is Tyler Adams the next man in Bundesliga? Steven pulled out this really, really misleading stat for me to feature here on the counterattack. But in terms of Bundesliga minutes since October 1st, 2018 to February 1st, 2019, Tyler Adams has played in a total of 180 minutes, while the wonder kid himself, Christian Pulisic, has played a whopping 174 minutes in the Bundesliga for Borussia Dortmund. So, according to this being misleading stat, Tyler Adams is better than Pulisic, right?
No, that's not what the question is. Is Tyler Adams the next man in the Bundesliga from the American perspective? And I think it's 100% yes, over Josh Sargent and Weston McKennie and all the other American Bundesliga players.
I watched Adams' debut, and he looked very comfortable on ball, didn't look phased by in the moments, made big plays. now he's starting again, or he started again this past weekend. He is comfortable. I think that's something that's really interesting for a guy, who just came from MLS. He's only 19. He doesn't seem phased by the big moments just yet. I like Adams. I like his composure. And as me and Joseph Larry talked about last week, we could see him fit in Greg Berhalter's system as, that wing back that shifts in, that Nick Lima-esque role. So I'm excited to see what Adams does, and I love Leipzig's logo. So
we know you're excited because I believe a few episodes ago you proclaimed Tyler Adams to be the next N'Golo Kante, I think is what you said.
I don't remember saying that, but if I did, there you go.
You stand by it. All right, moving on here. Let's keep it in the Bundesliga. We have some rumors, probably from a couple weeks ago, but we're going to dig them up anyways. Weston McKennie has been rumored to potentially Weston McKennie is drawing interest from clubs like Liverpool. Do you see Weston McKennie making a move to England this summer?
No.
I don't think so. I think he's in a good role with Schalke. I don't see him going to Liverpool. I think it's kind of sexy. I think to put an American name linking him with the Premier League team, get the clicks. I think that's the sexy thing to do nowadays.
Well, that's the easy thing to do, but I don't think it would be good for his career. He's still young, and let him grow with Schalke. Schalke, in the Bundesliga, is a regular. They can compete for Champions League play. This season they've kind of dipped a little bit, but I would stay where the minutes are and then make the move when you're 23, 24, 25. There's no rush for McKennie to get anywhere because he's at Schalke. It's like with Pulisic. There was really no rush for him to get out of Dortmund unless somebody else comes along and takes his minutes away.
Okay. Anyway, I think you saying Schalke is having a bit of a little dip this season is a little bit of an understatement, as I think they're in the lower half of the Bundesliga table. All right, let's go to MLS.
Wait. Aren't they in the Champions League though?
They might be, but they're like.
Aren't they playing City? They're playing City in the Champions League, yeah?
Yeah, but they're like 14th place or something like that in the
Bundesliga
Bundesliga table.
It ebbs and flows. Some seasons it's better.
We don't let the facts get in the way of a good season,
No,
All
but
right,
no. Yeah, look. They were in the
dip. They're in 6th place. A little dip, they're not 12th or anything crazy like that.
No, you can't. Look, a dip in the season, it's gonna happen. Look at where Bayern Munich are, by the way, huh? Yeah, they're gonna win the Bundesliga. I told you.
Bayern Munich in 3rd place. Now that's a dip, but Schalke in 12th place. That's more of like a.
Okay, but what do you expect from Schalke? Where do you think they would normally finish? They're not finishing top of the Bundesliga. They're finishing 3 or 4.
No, I would say like somewhere
5,
3
6.
3 through 6, somewhere around there. Not 12th.
Well,
come on.
Okay, it's plenty of time left, and it's one season.
Oh, you are the worst when it comes to the Bundesliga. By the way,
Bayern Munich hates the Bundesliga.
No, I don't hate the Bundesliga. I just think Schalke is just having an off season. And if they beat
really
City in the Champions League, what are you gonna say then?
They won't beat City in the Champions League. Come on, let's move on here. You've said a lot of things that are preposterous. We're moving on. We're cutting you off. Put the ball down.
10 points behind 5th place.
Steven.
I guarantee you. Here, put this in the prediction book, Jake.
Prediction book.
By the way, my God.
Schalke finished top 7th in the Bundesliga.
This is the guy that told me how preposterous it was that Bayern Munich would have any chance of winning the Bundesliga when they were like 10 points back or whatever the hell it was of Dortmund. And now he's like, hey. They're only 10 points back at 3rd place or whatever the hell you just said. Come on, man.
They're not.
Bayern
Munich are not winning the league. So historically, they've never overcome this.
They're only like 6 points
They're
back.
7 points out, and plus
7.
Schalke have an easier road to make up 10 points, and Bayern Munich have to make up 7 points.
You're okay. Let's move on. You're ridiculous.
Okay,
I can't deal with you. All right, we're talking about my club. We're talking about Minnesota United. Minnesota United traded $900,000 in Garber bucks, aka TAM, to SKC with the condition of an additional $100,000 of TAM going to SKC if they make the playoffs for center back Ike Opara. It's been well documented that Minnesota United can't play defense. They are very leaky at the back. They let in a ton of goals. Let's go to Armand first, as he's kind of our MLS guru here. Armand, does this mean Minnesota United will make the playoffs in the West in 2019?
I mean, from every pundit that I've been reading, it seems like they all expect Minnesota to make a top 4 seed. I don't really see that. I can see them, getting into that 6-7 role. I'm a huge, I guess, I've mentioned 6-7, that 6-7 spot like 8 times today. But I think they can get in there with a solid defense, play like a road playoff game. But I don't know if paying $900K for Ike Opara is specifically the right move. But, I mean, it's Manny Lagos and Adrian Heath potentially last year if they don't make the playoffs. So, I mean, they got to go all out, and they have to do whatever they can to get the right pieces.
There's pressure for them to make the playoffs. If they don't, a lot of people will lose their jobs.
I mean, what are your thoughts, Jake? Because you're the Minnesota United guy.
Yeah, and if they don't make the playoffs, I could see a huge I don't know, fire sales. Not fire sale. I could see a lot of executives, Adrian Heath, all losing their job if they can't find the way to make the playoffs. Especially Adrian Heath, if they get off to a slow start to start the season, he won't last. He gone. All right, let's move on here. This is kind of a controversial one, and I wanted to talk about it with you guys. MLS has denied the loan of Andrew Gutman from Celtic to Nashville SC of the USL. Now, it's been speculated that move has been blocked because Gutman did not sign a homegrown contract with Chicago Fire. Fellas, what the hell is MLS doing here?
They're being dictators. They're controlling. They're controlling everything.
MLS is, for lack of a better word, screwing over one of its potential expansion teams and screwing over a young American talent who needs playing time, who probably won't get playing time from Celtic in the get-go because of pettiness. Because, I mean, look, the Fire weren't trying to sign him anyway. The Fire were trying to shop his homegrown rights. They offered him a minimal homegrown deal. Like, you're not going to sign with a team if they're offering you garbage. And from, a buddy of mine, he goes to Indiana. He watches Gutman play week in and week out. He says he's one of the better attacking fullbacks. He would have been the number 1 pick in an MLS draft, like by far, from what people have been saying. And you're offering him nothing? Like, come on. That's ridiculous. And MLS, this is a terrible look for a league. You shouldn't be blocking other loans and stuff happening from other leagues. That's stupid. That's such a closed league thing,
Dictatorial. It is a dictator's mindset. Just saying.
Authoritative.
It's all the same.
Makes no sense. It makes no sense. It's a little ridiculous. All right, let's move on here from the BS. Let's dip our toes, I guess, into the world of politics, I guess, if you will here. President Donald Trump. Now, we're not going to get political here, just prefacing that. So, keep your politics aside. Donald Trump was on, I believe it was Face the Nation, CBS, Super Bowl Sunday, and was asked by Margaret Brennan of CBS if he'd let his son Barron play American football. President Trump's quote basically said, Barron actually likes to play a lot of soccer. He's liking soccer. A lot of people, including me, thought soccer would probably never make it in this country, but it really is moving forward rapidly. Now, guys, it's we're Super Bowl Sunday, and we're talking soccer. Is this kind of like a big deal?
Yes. I think it's a massive deal because Trump is being very honest here, where a lot of people are like, I didn't think soccer would make it, but among the youth, among the younger people, yeah, it's very popular, and it's only going to gain more traction. And I'm sure these are comments now going to circle the soccer Twitter sphere for a while, because this is the President of the United States talking about the shift between football and soccer and not allowing... He went on to say how he wouldn't allow Barron to play football, correct?
He said no. I don't think he said he wouldn't allow him to. I think he said if Barron wanted to, he would allow him to. But he did raise the point that football is dangerous, and that the football players he's talked to have said they would not let their sons play football.
Well, there you go. That's where football and soccer are going to meet, and you could in generations to come see a bigger shift in the amount of people playing football over soccer.
So, do you guys want to hear a fun fact? Y'all want to hear a fun fact? Yes or no?
Yes, sure.
So you know Barron Trump played for DC United as a cadmaster. He played for their U12s, and now he's playing for their U13s. So we might see a future DC United homegrown player, Barron Trump. That'd be pretty interesting, huh?
It would be very interesting. And yeah,
I think it would be
all I can say
soccer writer's
is,
meltdown.
I was just going to say that every soccer writer in this nation wouldn't know what to do with him or herself. They would all want to blow somebody's brains out. It would be pure frustration.
Specifically their own. That's such an interesting thing. Like, could you imagine if Barron Trump was this star academy product, like homegrown, and all of a sudden he's, one of the best midfielders in the pool for his age group, and he's featuring in the national team or something.
2026 World Cup.
Yeah, wait for the 2026 World Cup, and then you have Barron Trump in the midfield.
Ooh, that would cause some spicy headlines.
People, not even the media, but fans, everybody would lose their GD minds if he was that good. Oh man, that would be funny. Okay, anyway, that's the end of the counterattack. We've done enough politics, by the way. Someone's gonna be pissed off with us because we think it's funny that Barron Trump would be really good at soccer. Anyway, make sure you follow the. What?
No, I just think. Look, if people are gonna attack the president's son for playing soccer, then you need to grow up and go do something else with your life.
I agree. I wholeheartedly agree with that. Especially, I thought that Barron Trump got a lot of BS from people who found out that he was part of the DC United Academy, and I think that you can have whatever views you want of his father, but at the end of the day, Barron Trump is a 12 or 13-year-old, however old he may be, and for people to be rooting against him to not be a good soccer player or any ill will towards him, a child, a young kid, it's BS. Democrat,
Leave
Republican,
kids out of politics.
Exactly. So we're gonna end on that note. Leave kids out of politics. Make sure, by the way, that if you do have kids, though, they follow the show on Twitter at UncSamSoccerPod. Make sure they subscribe to the show on iTunes, Spotify, Spreaker, wherever you get your podcasts.
Make sure they have a 5-star review, and you can mention how we're douche frat Euro bros.
Yeah, make sure your kids. Yeah, that's
this
exactly
is, I think, the most douche frat Euro boy segment that we've done.
Yeah, you are 100% correct. As the official douche bro frat Euro snob guy on this podcast, Steven, you would know.
Yep.
So, yeah, Mr. Swiss over here.
I will not,
Mr. Swiss.
I will not argue otherwise. European soccer is just better than American soccer.
You gotta
wow, what a hot sports take. My heart.
All right. Anyway, we're gonna wrap it up here. All right. Follow the show on Twitter at UncSamSoccerPod. Subscribe where wherever you get your podcast. Follow Steven at Steven Jodaran. Follow Armancafy at Armancafy, and follow myself, Jake Watroba, at Jake Watroba. For Steven and Arman, I'm Jake. We will talk to you guys next week. Deuces.